Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA.
That's right. A world-class business education in a single volume. It's quite the claim.
It really is. And the idea is, well, it's a way to get that business knowledge without the huge time commitment or, frankly, the cost of a traditional MBA.
Exactly. It's more of a curated collection of essential business concepts, practical stuff.
So our mission today is really to unpack the key ideas in the book, figure out why it struck such a chord with people.
Yeah, people looking to start something, get ahead in their careers, or just understand how business actually works, improve their business sense.
Right, because maybe you, the listener, are thinking about launching something, or maybe eyeing a promotion.
Or even a totally new path.
And maybe there are things holding you back. Maybe business seems too complicated, or you feel like you don't have the right credentials.
Or worried about risk. Maybe even getting ripped off. This book offers a fresh perspective on tackling those fears.
Okay, so let's dive in. What's the real core philosophy behind the Personal MBA?
Well, at its heart, it's about focusing on practical, usable business skills. Not just the abstract theory you might get bogged down with in some traditional programs.
So less theory, more action.
Pretty much. Kaufman lays out 248 key business concepts.
Wow, 248. That sounds like a lot.
It does, but they're presented really simply. The idea is that anyone, beginner or experienced, can take these concepts, test them out, and actually accelerate their learning in the real world.
So it's not just reading, it's doing. It helps you build a better mental model of how businesses operate.
Precisely. It helps you refine how you think about business based on, what you actually observe, the actions you take, and the results you see. Cuts through the jargon.
Helps you make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a framework for understanding. And speaking of frameworks, the book breaks every business down into 5 essential parts. What are those?
Right. These are the absolute fundamentals. First up is value creation.
Okay.
This is about figuring out what people actually want or need and then, creating it.
Like Paul Graham said, make something people want.
Exactly that. It's the starting point. Can't have a business without something valuable to offer.
Makes sense. What's number 2?
Number 2 is marketing. You've created the value. Now you need to capture attention and build demand.
Get noticed.
Get noticed, yeah. Make sure the right people know your thing exists and why they might want it.
Because the best product in the world is useless if nobody knows about it.
Exactly. Which leads nicely into number 3, sales.
Right. Turning that interest into actual money.
Yes. Converting those interested prospects into paying customers. It's about building trust, showing the value, and making the transaction happen.
The actual exchange. Got it. What are the last 2?
4th is value delivery. This is everything that happens after the sale to make sure the customer gets what they were promised and is happy.
So keeping your promises, the whole customer experience.
The whole journey, yeah. Order fulfillment, support, everything. Keeping them satisfied.
Which leads to repeat business, hopefully.
Hopefully. And finally, number 5 is finance.
Ah, the money part.
The money part. Making sure enough cash is coming in to cover everything going out and ultimately to make the whole effort worthwhile. Sustainability.
So value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery, and finance. And the book argues pretty strongly that if you miss any one of these...
Yeah, you're likely heading for trouble.
Yeah.
The business probably won't succeed long term. Mastering these 5 is really key to being effective in business, whatever your role.
Okay. Beyond those 5 core building blocks, Kaufman also talks about 3 general ways to improve any business. What are those areas?
Yeah. He suggests focusing improvement efforts in 3 main buckets. First is understanding the human mind.
Psychology in business.
Basically, yeah. How people perceive things, make choices, why they behave the way they do. Super important for marketing, leadership, everything, really.
Makes sense. Businesses are run by people, for people. What's the second area?
The second is working with yourself. This is about your own personal effectiveness, managing your energy, being productive, building resilience.
Your own internal operating system.
That's a good way to put it. You can't run things well if you're burned out or disorganized.
True. And the third?
Working with others. This covers all the complexities of collaboration, negotiation, leadership, communication, building strong teams, and partnerships.
Because business is rarely a solo sport.
Very rarely.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy, the 5 parts, the 3 areas for improvement. Now let's talk directly to you, the listener. Why actually engage with these ideas? What's the real benefit of reading the Personal MBA?
Well, a key point the book makes is you don't need to know everything about business to succeed.
Right. It's not about becoming an encyclopedia.
Exactly. Often just understanding the core high-value principles is enough to make real progress. This book gives you that curated foundation.
The essential building blocks without the overwhelm.
That's the idea. So by digging into these concepts, you'll get a much better grasp of how businesses actually work, practical ways to start something new, ideas for improving what you're already doing.
And even applying these skills just for your own personal goals.
Yeah, definitely. The skills are transferable. And importantly, you don't need any prior business knowledge to get started with it.
It's written to be accessible for everyone.
Absolutely. Kaufman designed it that way. By the end, you'll likely find yourself thinking much more strategically about business.
But it's not just about getting answers handed to you, right? I remember it emphasizing something else.
That's a crucial point. It's not a magic recipe book. Its real power is in helping you learn to ask better questions.
Okay.
And asking the right questions in business is often way more valuable than having ready-made answers. It helps you zero in on what really matters in your specific situation.
So it sharpens your critical thinking about business problems.
Exactly. And it gives you these mental models, these frameworks for thinking, which help you make better decisions. So that saves you time, energy, money, because you're guided towards more effective actions. It's like having a better mental toolkit.
That sounds incredibly useful. What about going a bit deeper? Beyond the basics, what other insights can someone expect?
Well, you'll definitely get a deeper understanding of businesses as systems, how all the parts connect, and how to improve overall results.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. And you'll gain more insight into people, how they think, decide, act, which makes you better at, interacting, communicating, persuading, understanding cognitive biases, for example.
The human element again. Seems central.
It really is. Plus, you start to understand how larger systems work, industries, society, culture, government regulations, and how to navigate or even leverage those for your business.
So seeing your business within its whole ecosystem.
Exactly. The book also clears up some common myths, like management and leadership. They aren't the end goals. They're just tools to deliver value to customers.
Means to an end, not the end itself. Got it. What about finance? That scares a lot of people.
It does, but the book approaches it practically. It focuses on the core stuff you need to know to manage risk and make sound decisions without needing to become a CPA overnight. Functional financial literacy.
Useful, practical knowledge, not getting lost in the weeds.
Right. Same with stats and modeling. It hits the key principles that give you the biggest bang for your buck in decision-making. Applying data smarts.
Focus on what drives results.
Exactly. And you don't have to read it cover to cover linearly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can dip into the sections most relevant to you right now. Make it work for your needs.
Tailor the learning. I like that.
And Kaufman encourages taking notes, sharing what you learn. Teaching someone else really cements it in your own mind.
That's always true. The best way to learn is to teach.
Definitely. But it's worth saying again, what we're talking about here is a summary, a starting point. You really need to dive into the book itself to get the full benefit.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive deeper into one of those fundamentals.
Yeah.
Value creation. What does the book really say about how value gets created?
At its core, every successful business improves someone's life in some way. It creates value. The job of the business person, fundamentally, is to spot unmet needs or desires.
Problems people have.
Problems, yeah, or things they want. And then figure out how to effectively address those. Find a problem, offer a compelling solution.
So business is fundamentally about solving problems for people.
That's it. And you have to remember, customers value the outcome, the solution, the experience you provide, not just the money they hand over. Value can take many forms, but the goal is always making someone's life better or easier somehow.
Which goes right back to make something people want.
It's the cornerstone. If you can find something broken and figure out a better way, especially for lots of people, you've likely got a real opportunity. And this ties all 5 parts together. Understanding the want, value creation, telling people, marketing, the exchange, sales, making sure they get it, value delivery, and keeping it sustainable, finance.
So value creation is the sun, and the other parts orbit around it.
You could say that. And a really critical idea here is the iron law of the market.
Sounds serious.
It is, in a way. It basically says,
Yeah.
if nobody wants to buy what you've made, all your effort was wasted.
Ouch. But true. Can't force demand if the need isn't there.
Exactly. It seems obvious, but so many businesses fall into this trap. They fall in love with their idea before checking if anyone actually wants it.
Right.
So you absolutely must look at the market first. What are people already buying? What problems are they trying to solve? What do they wish they had? Do that before you invest heavily in building something. Ignoring this is a fast track to failure.
Market research isn't optional, it's essential. Validate the problem first.
Absolutely crucial. And to understand why people want things, the book talks about 4 basic human drives.
Okay.
The drive to acquire, to connect with others, to learn, and to protect.
Those feel pretty universal.
They are. And the more your offer taps into one or more of these deep drives, the more attractive it will naturally be.
Yeah.
A security system taps into protect. Social media taps into connect.
Understanding those helps you frame your offer better.
Precisely. And when you're looking at a potential market opportunity, the book gives you 10 factors to evaluate it.
10? Okay, what are they?
Urgency. How badly do people need it now? Market size. How many potential customers are there? Pricing potential. How much might they pay? Cost of acquisition. How much to get a customer? Cost of delivery. How much to fulfill the promise? Uniqueness. How different is your offer? Speed of creation, how fast can you build it? Upfront investment, how much capital needed? Self-funding potential, can it pay its own way quickly?
Brilliant.
And speed of sales, how fast can you close deals?
Whoa, that's a thorough checklist. Really makes you think through the viability.
It does. Going through those 10 points before you jump in can save a lot of heartache later. A big market with an urgent need and good pricing potential. Much better bet than the opposite.
Right. Okay, so we know value creation is key. We know how to check the market. What about the different forms value can take?
Good question. The book distinguishes between the underlying value and how it's packaged for sale. It draws on Ludwig von Mises, the economist, saying value isn't inherent in the thing itself. It's a subjective human reaction. It's in the eye of the beholder based on their situation.
Value is perceived, not objective.
Cool. Exactly. So to exchange that perceived value, you need to package it. The book lists 12 basic forms of financial value businesses typically offer. Many businesses mix and match these, of course.
12 basic forms. Okay, give us some examples.
Sure. The most obvious is a product. Make a physical thing, sell it for more than it costs. Then there's a service helping someone out for a fee, like a consultant or plumber.
Right. Tangible versus intangible.
Then you have shared resources, like a gym or a co-working space where people pay for access. And subscriptions are huge now, ongoing access or benefits for a recurring fee. Think Netflix.
Very common. What else?
There's resale, buying low, selling higher, like a used car dealer. Lease, letting someone use your asset for a fee, like renting an apartment. Agency, facilitating a deal for others and taking a cut, like a talent agent. And audience aggregation, gathering attention, like a magazine or website, and selling access to advertisers.
Okay, covering a lot of ground. What are the last few?
A loan, lending money for interest. An option, selling the right, but not obligation, to do something later, like stock options. Insurance, taking on risk for a premium. And finally, capital, investing in a business for a share of ownership or profits.
That's a really diverse set of models. Makes you realize how many ways there are to structure a business.
It really does. And beyond those forms, there's the idea of perceived value percentage.
What's that about?
It's basically how much a customer will pay based on their current situation and options. It's dynamic. Think about how much you'd pay for water if you were lost in a desert versus sitting at home.
Context is everything for pricing.
Absolutely. And businesses can enhance value creation through strategies like optionality, offering different versions or tiers.
Like software plans.
Exactly. Or bundling, combining offers into a package deal. Think fast food combos. Or the opposite, unbundling, breaking one offer into smaller pieces, like airlines charging for bags separately.
Adapting the offer to different needs.
Precisely. And crucially, especially early on, the book stresses using prototypes. Get something rough out there quickly.
Minimum viable product idea.
Sort of, yeah. Get a rough and ready version in front of potential customers for feedback. Don't spend ages perfecting it in secret.
Get feedback early and often.
That feedback is gold. It tells you what works, what doesn't, how much people might value it before you sink massive resources into a full launch. Turns guesswork into learning.
It's an iterative loop. Create, test, refine.
Absolutely. And always keep an eye on the existing market landscape. Who are your competitors? What are they doing? What do customers expect? You don't operate in a bubble.
Know your playing field.
Right. And finally, accept trade-offs. You can't please everyone. Focus on making your specific target audience happy and improving for them rather than trying to be universally perfect.
We don't try to be all things to all people.
Exactly. And to help figure out what people value, the book lists 9 common economic values people weigh: efficiency, speed, reliability, Ease of use, flexibility, status, aesthetic appeal, emotion, and cost. Thinking about these helps clarify your offer's appeal.
A useful checklist for evaluating your own value proposition.
Definitely. Understanding these helps you focus your value creation efforts where they'll matter most to your customers.
Okay, great stuff on creating value. But as the book says, creating it isn't enough. You need marketing. What are the key takeaways there?
Right. Value is step one, but if no one knows about it, you're stuck. Marketing is presented as absolutely crucial for survival, not optional.
It's the bridge to the customer.
Exactly. Without it, people won't know you exist, let alone buy from you. Even if they are aware, good marketing generates that initial interest and desire. It connects your value to their awareness.
So it primes the pump for sales.
Perfectly put. Every successful business finds ways to grab the attention of the right people, qualified prospects efficiently and cost-effectively. More qualified prospects mean better chances of success.
Right people, not just any people.
Crucial distinction. And the book clearly separates marketing from sales, though they're related.
How does it define the difference?
Marketing is mostly about getting noticed initially and sparking that interest. Sales is the next step, engaging those interested people, building the relationship, and actually closing the deal. Marketing casts the net, sales reels in the fish.
Okay, clear distinction. Marketing attracts, sale converts. So what's the #1 rule of marketing, according to Kaufman?
The biggest rule is attention is scarce, extremely scarce. People are bombarded constantly, so they filter almost everything out.
Information overload.
Totally. So to cut through, you have to be different. Unique, remarkable, highly relevant, something that stands out. But just getting attention isn't the end goal.
It has to be the right kind of attention, right?
Absolutely. The goal is attracting potential paying customers, people likely to actually buy. Business is about sales, not just being popular or getting clicks. Vanity metrics don't pay the bills.
Focus on prospects who need what you offer and have the ability to pay.
That's the core of it. And beyond attention, other factors matter, like receptivity.
How people perceive your message.
Yeah. Everyone interprets things through their own filters and biases. You need to understand their perspective to craft marketing that actually lands effectively.
Know your audience deeply.
And remarkability. What makes your stuff stand out? Why would someone talk about it or share it?
Being genuinely noteworthy.
Yes. And focusing efforts on the right audience is key. Don't waste resources trying to reach everyone. Target those already likely interested in what you offer. Niche down.
Efficient use of marketing resources.
Definitely. Plus, your approach needs to match the prospect's level of awareness. Do they even know they have the problem you solve? Do they know solutions exist? Do they know about your solution? Meet them where they are.
Tailor the message to their stage in the journey.
Exactly. And finally, always focus on the benefits, not just the features. What's the end result for the customer? How does it make their life better? That's what people buy.
Answering what's in it for me from their viewpoint.
Always. Focus on outcomes, demonstrate the improvement, and your marketing becomes much more compelling.
Okay, so marketing gets attention and interest. What comes next? What's the crucial step to turn that interest into revenue?
That absolutely vital next step is sales. The Personal MBA calls sales the backbone of any business. You can have amazing products, great marketing, but if no one actually buys...
It's all for nothing. Sales is where the value meets the wallet.
Exactly. Sales is the process that turns an interested prospect into a paying customer. It's where the potential value you created and marketed finally becomes real money flowing into the business. No sales, no business.
The engine driving the finances.
Precisely. And a huge part of sales is gaining the prospect's trust. You need to clearly show the value, the benefits, the reliability of your offer. People won't buy if they don't trust you or your product.
They need confidence they won't regret the purchase or get scammed.
Absolutely. So the sales process has to build that confidence. The ultimate goal isn't just the transaction, it's creating a satisfied customer and generating revenue. It's a win-win.
Building a relationship, not just making a one-off sale.
That's the sustainable way. And the book defines the core of sales as the transaction.
The actual exchange of value.
Right. Where resources, usually money, flow into the business in exchange for the value provided. The key goal is always a profitable transaction revenue exceeding the costs involved. That's what keeps the lights on and fuels growth.
Makes sense. Both sides benefit.
And again, trust is the lubricant for that transaction. Without it, friction increases, deals slow down or fall apart. Building reputation for honesty, fairness, transparency, that's a powerful long-term sales strategy.
Integrity builds confidence.
It really does.
Yeah.
The easier it is for both sides to verify trustworthiness, the smoother the whole process.
Now, sales involves human interaction. What does the book say about the dynamics there?
It makes a great point.
Yeah.
Every successful sale happens on common ground.
Common ground.
Yeah, a state of shared interest between the buyer and seller. Finding that shared interest is much easier and more effective than trying to force a sale where there's no real alignment.
Finding the mutual win.
Exactly. Which leads to negotiation. The book sees negotiation not as a battle, but as exploring different ways to reach that common ground. The more options you explore together, the better the chance of finding terms that work for everyone.
Collaborative problem solving, not confrontation.
That's the idea. And importantly, ethical sales isn't about tricking someone into buying something they don't need or want.
Right.
It's about understanding their needs, their problems, and clearly showing how your offer is a valuable solution for them. Matching solutions to problems.
Leads-based selling.
Precisely. Now, inevitably, this brings us to pricing. How do you set the price? The book has an interesting take here.
Yeah. What's that?
It's called the pricing uncertainty principle. The core idea is that, well, prices are basically made up.
Made up.
In the sense that they aren't fixed by nature. It's an executive decision. You can technically ask any price and then try to convince people it's worth it. Unlike, say, the cost of raw materials.
Okay, I see. It's a strategic choice, not a fixed cost.
Exactly. The book uses selling a house as an example. You can list it for almost anything initially. The goal, of course, is to find the highest price a willing buyer will actually accept.
Maximize the return.
Right. So the big question is, how do you figure out that maximum acceptable price? The book introduces 4 main pricing methods businesses use.
4 methods. What are they?
First is replacement cost. Figure out what it costs to make it, add your profit margin. Second, market comparison. See what similar things are selling for.
Benchmarking against competitors.
Yep. Third is discounted cash flow net present value, DCFNPV, mostly for assets or businesses generating future income, calculating their present value. And fourth, the value comparison method.
Based on perceived value.
Exactly. This focuses on understanding how valuable your offer is to the target customer and pricing based on that perceived worth. The book suggests this is often the most strategic approach, allowing you to capture a fair share of the value you create.
Pricing based on the benefit delivered, not just the cost to make it.
That's the core idea. Now, once you have a price, how do you convince people it's worth paying?
Good question. What selling approaches does the book suggest?
One key approach is value-based selling. This means deeply understanding why your offer is valuable to that specific buyer and highlighting those reasons throughout the sale. Anchor the price to the benefits they'll receive.
Show them the ROI, the specific gain for them.
Precisely. This often lets you charge more than just cost-plus or competitor-based pricing. Another powerful method is education-based selling.
Using education to sell. How does that work?
It's about making your prospects smarter, more informed customers. Take the time to educate them about the problem, the different solutions, why your approach is effective. This builds trust and generates qualified interest.
Become a trusted advisor, not just a salesperson.
Exactly. The book also stresses understanding negotiation tactics, knowing what the other side might be doing helps you position your offer better.
Anticipating their moves.
Right. And a huge part of sales is handling objections. Anything preventing the purchase is an objection. You need to identify and overcome them.
Finding the roadblocks.
Yep. Common ones include fear of wasting money, belief it won't work or won't work for them, thinking they can wait, or that it's too difficult to use or implement.
Understanding those fears helps you address them proactively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anticipate and address objections, and you significantly increase your chances of closing the sale and creating a happy customer.
Okay, so we've covered creating value, marketing it, and selling it. What's the absolutely crucial next step after the sale is made?
The next vital piece is value delivery. The Personal MBA hammers this home. Successful businesses don't just make promises, they deliver on them. Consistently, reliably.
This is what separates legitimate businesses from scams. Keeping your word.
Absolutely. Value delivery covers everything needed to ensure a happy paying customer after the transaction. There's order processing, inventory management, shipping, customer support, the whole post-purchase experience.
Everything that happens after they click buy.
Right. And without solid value delivery, you don't have a sustainable business. It's the foundation of loyalty, referrals, repeat business. Focusing only on acquisition and neglecting delivery is a common mistake.
Can't just make the sale and forget them. The experience matters hugely.
Hugely. The best businesses consistently try to exceed expectations during delivery. Over-deliver. That leads to delighted customers who become advocates.
Happy customers are the best marketing.
Absolutely. Fail here, and you lose customers fast and damage your reputation.
So what are the key components of effective value delivery, according to the book?
It outlines several. First is the value stream, the whole sequence of steps from creation to the customer's hands. The goal is to make this stream as lean and efficient as possible.
Streamlining the entire process.
Exactly. Then distribution channels, how your offer actually reaches the customer, direct. Through intermediaries, need to make sure your channels fit your business and customers.
Getting it to the right place, the right way.
Yeah. Also, perception of quality. This is shaped by expectations versus reality. To be seen as high quality, performance needs to consistently meet or ideally exceed expectations.
Under-promise and over-deliver, essentially.
That helps. Related is predictability, delivering exactly what's expected every time. Consistency builds trust. Surprises are only good if the basics are already nailed.
Reliability is key.
Definitely. Then there's quality itself, fitness for purpose. Enhanced by quality signals, things like packaging, service, design elements that boost the perception of quality.
So those little touches that signal excellence.
Right. The book also mentions throughput, the rate your system delivers value, how many units per hour, orders per day, etc. Higher is generally better.
Measuring the flow rate?
Yes, and duplication, the ability to reproduce your value offering quickly and cheaply. Think making copies of software versus handcrafting each item allows for wider reach.
Scaling the offering itself.
And building on that is multiplication, applying duplication to the whole business process or system. This is often what separates small businesses from large ones, replicating the entire model.
Scaling the whole operation.
Which requires scale, the capacity to reliably handle increasing volume as you grow. Usually means limiting direct human involvement in core processes.
Building systems that can handle growth.
Exactly. And finally, Kaizen. The Japanese idea of continuous small improvements. Lots of tiny tweaks over time add up to significant gains in efficiency and quality.
The power of marginal gains.
That's it. These elements give you a framework for thinking about how to make your delivery process better and keep customers happy.
Okay, that covers the first 4 parts: value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery. Which brings us to the 5th and final piece: finance. Often the scary one.
It often is. Finance. The book calls it the science and art of managing money in a business. And yeah, it definitely intimidates a lot of people.
Feels like a different language sometimes.
It can, but the Personal MBA simplifies it. At its core, finance is just tracking the money flowing in and out and making sure there's enough to keep things running and meet your goals. Maintaining that healthy flow.
Keeping tabs on income versus expenses?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
And accounting is the tool for that, systematically organizing the financial data you need to make informed decisions. It can get complex, sure, but the goal is clarity. Is the business performing as intended? It's the financial scorecard.
Using numbers to tell the story of the business's health.
Exactly. And the most fundamental concept here is the absolute necessity of cash flow. Every single successful business needs money coming in consistently. Cash is the lifeblood.
Regular income.
Right. That daily flow is tied to everything else. Costs of creating value, marketing spend, revenue from sales, expenses for delivery. It's all connected financially.
An interconnected financial web.
Totally. The best businesses, the book argues, create a virtuous cycle, continuously cutting costs while creating more value. This leads to better cash flow, happier customers, and reinforces the cycle.
A sustainable growth engine.
Precisely. Another core concept is profit. Simply put, earning more than you spend. Essential for survival, provides a buffer against tough times, allows for reinvestment.
The financial cushion and fuel for growth.
Exactly. Though the book cautions profit shouldn't be the only goal. Serving others, providing real value, that should remain central too. Purpose and profit.
Balancing financial return with genuine service.
Absolutely. To measure how well you're doing that, there's profit margin. That's the percentage of revenue you keep after all costs, a key indicator of efficiency.
A measure of profitability.
Right. The book gives the basic formula, making it practical.
Now, when you make a sale, how much of that value should you aim to keep as profit? What's the right balance?
That leads to value capture, defined as the percentage of the value created in a transaction that the business retains.
Finding the sweet spot.
It's a trade-off. Capture too much, charge too high, and your offer becomes less attractive. Capture too little, charge too low, and you might not be sustainable.
Can't price yourself out of the market, but need enough to survive and grow. Leave some value for the customer.
Exactly. Capture enough to meet your needs and goals, but don't necessarily squeeze every last cent out. Fair exchange builds relationships.
A fair deal for both sides.
Right. Another key term is valuation. That's an estimate of the company's total worth, influenced by revenue, margins, assets, liabilities, future prospects.
The overall estimated economic value of the business.
Yep. A higher valuation makes it easier to get loans or attract investors. Many strategic decisions are aimed at increasing valuation over time.
Building long-term company value.
Exactly. Finally, the book talks about financial sufficiency. This is the point where the business generates enough profit reliably to ensure it can continue operating long into the future. Fundamental self-reliance.
Reaching stability and long-term viability.
Yes. Achieving sufficiency is a major success marker, regardless of the absolute dollar amount. It means the business model works.
Sustainability is the key.
It is. And to track all this, manage health, make decisions, you need to understand key financial statements.
The main reports.
The book highlights 3. The cash flow statement, simple view of money in and money out over time. Goal, more in than out, positive balance.
Tracking the actual cash movement.
Yes. Second, the income statement, or P&L, calculates profitability by tracking revenues against related expenses for a period. Crucial for true profit, especially with inventory or credit.
Shows if you actually made money or not over time.
Right. And third, the balance sheet. A snapshot of assets, what you own, and liabilities, what you owe at a specific point in time. Answers questions about solvency and net worth changes.
A snapshot of financial position and overall worth at that moment.
Exactly. Understanding and regularly reviewing these 3 gives you the essential insights to manage the financial health of the business effectively.
Okay, we've covered the 5 essential business parts. Now, the book shifts gears to focus on understanding the human element. Why is this so crucial?
It's a critical shift because businesses are made by people, for people. As we saw with value creation, you exist to serve customer needs. If you don't understand those needs, you can't succeed.
Everything circles back to people.
Absolutely. And if you don't understand how people think, decide, and act, how can you effectively market to them or sell to them or even lead your own team? The human factor is central, not optional.
The psychology behind it all.
Exactly. The Personal MBA argues that understanding the human mind is essential for building a successful business. Once you grasp that, you find better ways to get things done, build relationships, work effectively with everyone involved.
Applying psychology to the business world.
Pretty much. And it starts with basic human biology and its impact on performance. The book points out our biology evolved for a very different world than today's high-demand environment.
We're not perfectly wired for 21st century life.
Not always. This mismatch affects our energy, focus, decision-making, well-being. We need to be aware of it and manage it.
Understand our own operating system's limitations.
Right? The book stresses the body's basic needs: nutrition, rest, exercise. Like any machine, neglect the basics and performance suffers. These underpin productivity, energy, mood, all vital for business.
Taking care of yourself is fundamental to professional effectiveness.
Absolutely. Gives practical tips. Eat well, move regularly, prioritize sleep, 7 to 8 hours, get some sun, consider supplements if needed.
Actionable advice for optimizing well-being.
Yes, and it encourages experimenting to find what works best for you, your productivity, energy, mood. It's personal.
Self-optimization is key.
Definitely. Moving beyond biology, the book explores understanding human behavior. It uses the simple model of the onion brain to visualize brain layers.
A simple way to think about brain structure.
Yeah. And it suggests things like meditation to create distance from the voice in your head, to observe thoughts without reacting immediately.
Gaining perspective on internal chatter.
Right. A key theory introduced is perceptual control theory. This says we act to keep our perceptions of the world within acceptable boundaries. We don't just react to the world. We act to control how we perceive it.
So our actions are driven by trying to manage our internal experience.
That's the core idea. We put on a coat because we perceive cold, and we act to change that perception. The environment shapes what actions are possible to control those perceptions.
Our surroundings limit or enable our control strategies.
Precisely. Understanding this helps you better grasp people's needs, motivations, and why they do what they do.
A framework for the why behind actions.
Absolutely. And central to this theory are reference levels. These are the internal standards we use in our control systems.
Okay, what types are there?
3 main types. A set point, a specific minimum or maximum acceptable level, like a budget target. Stay within it, things feel okay.
A clear threshold.
Right. Second, a range of acceptable values, an upper and lower limit, a band of tolerance. Perception needs to stay within this range.
A zone of acceptability.
Exactly. Third is a zero-based quality set point. Here, anything other than zero is out of control. Think product defects, the goal is zero.
Striving for perfection.
Right. The key insight is to change behavior, yours or someone else's, you need to change either the reference level itself or change the environment influencing the possible actions.
Influence their internal standard or change their external options.
Exactly. Understanding these reference levels gives you powerful leverage for influencing behavior.
Now, what happens when things go wrong? When our perceptions are way off our reference levels and we don't know how to fix it?
That's when reorganization kicks in. It's described as a kind of random-seeming exploration or trial-and-error behavior when a key reference level is violated and you don't have an immediate solution.
Mental troubleshooting when the usual plan fails?
Pretty much. You can feel like job dissatisfaction, restlessness, a midlife crisis, knowing something's wrong but not what or how to fix it. The brain is basically gathering data, trying new things to see what works to regain control.
Exploring new paths when the old ones don't work?
Exactly. And the book advises not fighting reorganization. It's usually a necessary learning phase. Trying to suppress it often just slows down adaptation. Once you learn a new control strategy, it stops naturally.
Embrace the uncertainty as part of growth.
Right. And speaking of internal struggles, what about conflict within the mind?
Ah, yes, the internal battles. How does the book explain those?
Conflict arises when two different internal control systems try to change the same perception in opposing ways. Classic example, procrastination. One part wants relaxation now, another wants long-term achievement. Competing internal drives, pulling in different directions.
Exactly. It can also happen when different people or teams need the same limited resources for different goals. Resolving conflict, the book says, requires changing the reference levels involved, changing how success is defined for the competing parts.
Redefining the goals or priorities of the conflicting systems.
Yes, changing the structure of the situation that shapes those levels can help resolve the conflict.
Now, a huge driver of action is motivation. How does the book define this crucial element?
It defines motivation as an emotional state, linking brain parts responsible for action. It's the internal drive.
The engine behind behavior.
Right, driven by two basic desires. Moving towards something desirable or moving away from something undesirable.
Carrot and the stick again.
Pretty much. And crucially, motivation is a feeling, an emotion, not just a rational thought. Thinking you should be motivated doesn't automatically make you feel motivated. Internal conflict can trigger both towards and away signals simultaneously, leading to inaction.
Like hitting the gas and brake at the same time.
Yeah.
Gridlock.
Exactly. The book also notes that our old defense mechanisms evolved for physical threats, often hinder action in modern, less dangerous situations. Our caution can become counterproductive.
Old survival instincts getting in the way of modern progress.
Right, which brings us to acrasia and monomania. Interesting concepts.
Tell me about them.
Acrasia is knowing what you should do, what's best for you, but not doing it. The gap between intention and action. The book calls it one of the biggest barriers we face.
That frustrating feeling of knowing better but still not acting, very common. Very. The opposite is monomania, also called flow or being in the zone. That's intense focus on a single thing, leading to high productivity and engagement.
That state of deep work. Highly desirable.
Definitely. The book gives tips to induce it. Eliminate distractions, resolve internal conflicts first. Maybe start with a small, easy win to get momentum.
Creating the right conditions for focus.
Exactly. Address external and internal blocks first, and you're much more likely to achieve that focused state.
Now, when we're juggling tasks, the book mentions the cognitive switching penalty. What's that?
That's the time and mental energy lost every time you shift focus between different tasks. Your brain have to unload the context of task A and reload the context for task B. It's not free.
Mental gear shifting takes effort.
Right. And true multitasking. Neurologically impossible for most. What feels like multitasking is just rapid attention switching, which incurs that penalty repeatedly.
Rapid serial processing, not parallel.
Exactly. So to minimize the penalty, the advice is to batch similar tasks together. Load context once, do all related work, then switch. Much more efficient.
Grouping similar work improves focus and efficiency.
Definitely. And when faced with a list of tasks, a book outlines 4 methods of task completion. How to deal with them.
Okay, what are the 4 options?
1, completion. Just do the task yourself, best if you're uniquely skilled at it or enjoy it. 2, Deletion. Decide it's not important or necessary and just eliminate it. Ruthlessly pruning the unnecessary.
Yes. 3, delegation. Assign it to someone else who can do it reasonably well, say 80% as efficiently as you. Frees you up. 4, deferment. Postpone it if it's not urgent or time-dependent.
Strategically delaying the non-critical.
Right. The idea is to consciously use all 4 options to manage your workload effectively, not just try to do everything.
Makes sense. And for prioritizing what's left, there are most important tasks, MITs, and goals.
Tell us about those.
MITs are the 1 or 2 tasks that will yield the biggest results for that day toward your main objectives. The advice is, identify them first thing. Focus on completing them early, maybe keep them on a separate list from your general to-do clutter. Tackle the highest impact items first.
Exactly. And goals are clear statements of what you want to achieve. The book suggests the PRE format for effective goals. Positive, under your control, results-oriented, and explicit.
Okay, break down PRE.
Positive, focus on what you want, not what you want to avoid. Under your control, depends mainly on your actions, not luck or others. Results-oriented, focus on the outcome, not just the activity. Explicit, clearly defined, specific, ideally measurable.
Setting goals that are positive, controllable, outcome-focused, and crystal clear.
Right. Using PRI makes goals much more likely to be achieved.
Okay, great insights on working with ourselves. Now let's shift to working effectively with others. What are the foundational ideas here?
When working with others, the book emphasizes understanding power and influence. Power here means the ability to get things done through others.
Achieving goals via collaboration.
Exactly. All relationships involve power dynamics, usually as influence, encouraging action, or compulsion, forcing action.
Persuasion versus command.
Right. And influence is generally far more effective and sustainable in business. The best way to increase your power, enhance your influence, and build a strong reputation.
Based on competence and trust. Yes. Building on this, there's the concept of comparative advantage.
What's that again?
Focus on what you do best, your strengths. Collaborate with others who are strong where you're weak. Specialization and teamwork. Play to your strengths, partner for your weaknesses.
Exactly. That's why diverse teams often outperform homogeneous ones, complementary skills and perspectives.
Makes sense. More tools in the collective toolbox.
But teamwork brings challenges like communication overhead.
The time spent talking about work instead of doing work.
Pretty much. Meetings, emails, updates. It's necessary, but the book notes overhead increases significantly, maybe even exponentially, as team size grows.
More people, more coordination time.
Right. The suggestion. Keep teams as small as practically possible to minimize this overhead and boost efficiency.
Lean and agile team.
Exactly. Another key principle for working with others, the importance of feeling important.
The universal human need for validation and significance.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to feel valued. Making people feel important strengthens relationships and fosters collaboration.
Small gestures can have a big impact.
Definitely. Simple things. Show genuine interest, listen attentively, ask thoughtful questions. It shows you value their input and perspective.
Basic respect and courtesy go a long way.
They really do. For more structured communication, the book talks about safe communication and the golden trifecta.
Creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up.
Exactly. Both parties need to feel psychologically safe for communication to be truly effective. If someone feels threatened or unheard, they'll shut down.
Building psychological safety is crucial.
Right. The model for doing this involves steps like start with safety, establish respect, tell your story clearly, state facts, not judgments, ask for others' paths, seek to understand their view, talk tentatively, avoid absolutes, encourage testing, invite feedback on ideas.
A collaborative approach to dialogue.
Yes. And underpinning it is the golden trifecta. Appreciation, acknowledge contributions, courtesy, be polite and respectful, and respect, honor their situation, perspective, value. Apply this consistently.
Appreciation, courtesy, respect. The foundation of positive interaction.
Another powerful tool is the power of why.
Explaining the reason behind a request.
Yes. Research shows that simply giving a reason dramatically increases compliance. People are more likely to help if they understand the purpose.
Context matters. People want to know the bigger picture.
Right. Clearly communicating the why behind tasks empowers people to work towards goals more effectively with less supervision needed.
Clarity of purpose enables autonomy.
Exactly. Then there's the planning fallacy.
Our tendency to underestimate how long things will take.
That's the one. We're consistently optimistic about timelines for complex projects, even when past experience tells us otherwise.
Even when we know better, we still do it.
Pretty much. But the book argues planning is still vital, even if the estimates aren't perfect. The process of planning helps you understand requirements, dependencies, risks. It forces foresight.
The act of planning itself is valuable, regardless of prediction accuracy. It reduces uncertainty.
Right. And finally, authority and responsibility.
The link between power and accountability.
Yes. We tend to follow perceived authority figures. So, building perceived authority through expertise, reputation, increases your influence.
Credibility enhances persuasion.
But authority must be balanced with responsibility. If you have the authority to direct others, you must also be accountable for the outcomes.
With great power comes great responsibility, as they say.
Exactly. And influence built on competence, integrity, and responsibility is the most effective way to collaborate and achieve shared goals.
Okay, fascinating insights on the human side. Now, the book takes an even broader view. Understanding business as a complex system. Why is this perspective so important?
It's crucial because businesses aren't just collections of separate parts. They're interconnected networks where everything affects everything else. To manage effectively, you need to see the whole system.
Recognizing the interdependencies and feedback loops.
Exactly. A complex system is defined as a self-perpetuating arrangement of interconnected parts forming a unified whole, and businesses exist within larger systems, markets, industries, society.
Nested systems within systems.
Right. This section aims to give you the tools to understand common system elements, environmental influences, and the nature of uncertainty and change.
The underlying principles governing how these complex entities operate and evolve.
Precisely. One key concept is Gauss's law. What's that about?
Gauss's law essentially says successful complex systems always evolve from simpler systems that already worked. The takeaway: if you want a complex system, start simple, make it work, then improve and expand iteratively. Don't try to build a massive, perfect thing from scratch. Start small, validate, then scale complexity.
Exactly. Another core concept, flows.
The movement of resources in and out.
Yes. Inflows are resources coming in, money, materials, info. Outflows are resources leaving, products, payments, waste. Understanding these flows is key to understanding how the system functions and sustains itself.
Tracking the inputs and outputs.
Closely related are stocks.
Accumulations of resources within the system.
Right. Pools of resources that build up. Think inventory, cash reserves. You increase a stock by increasing inflows or decreasing outflows and vice versa.
Identifying the key reserves.
And then there's slack.
The buffer in the stock.
Exactly. The amount of excess resources available. Too much slack is wasteful. Too little makes the system fragile, prone to running out. You need the just right amount for efficiency and resilience.
Finding the Goldilocks zone for resources.
Right. Then there's the huge concept of constraints, linked to the theory of constraints.
The idea that system performance is limited by its bottleneck.
That's it. The single factor most restricting throughput. Managing that constraint is key to improving the whole system.
Find the bottleneck. Focus your efforts there.
Exactly. The book outlines Goldratt's 5 steps. Identify the constraint, exploit it, use it fully, subordinate everything else to support it, elevate it, increase its capacity, then reevaluate because the constraint might have moved.
A systematic process for bottleneck management.
Yes. Then we have feedback loops.
Where outputs circle back as inputs.
Right. 2 types. Balancing loops stabilize the system, reducing output with each cycle. Reinforcing loops amplify output, leading to exponential growth or decline. Understanding these helps predict system behavior.
Self-regulating cycles that drive stability or change.
Precisely. And autocatalysis.
Where the output fuels more of the same reaction.
Yes. Like a reinforcing loop, leading to self-accelerating growth until something changes or hits a limit.
Self-sustaining growth dynamics.
Systems also have attractors.
The underlying patterns or stable states the system tends towards.
Exactly. The structures guiding how the system operates. As the environment changes, these attractors need to adapt for the system to survive.
The inherent tendencies and equilibrium points.
And the environment imposes a selection test.
The survival filter. What determines which systems make it?
Right. Constraints from the environment deciding who survives. In business, profitability is a primary selection test. Fail it consistently, and the market eliminates you.
The ultimate arbiter of viability.
And finally, change is constant.
All systems evolve. Nothing stays static.
Absolutely. Predicting how is hard, but that systems will change is certain. Stability is an illusion. Flexibility and adaptability are crucial for navigating inevitable change.
Resilience is paramount.
Exactly. Understanding these system concepts provides a powerful lens for analyzing and managing any business.
Okay, so we understand businesses are complex systems. How does the book suggest we actually analyze them? What tools or methods?
Great question. To improve a system, you first have to understand it. The book quotes John Gall. Complex systems evolve from simple working systems. Designing complexity from scratch fails. Start simple, understand it.
Build understanding iteratively.
Right. Two key processes for analysis: deconstruction and measurement. Break it down and quantify its performance.
Deconstruct complexity, measure reality.
Exactly. Deconstruction means breaking the big system into smaller, understandable subsystems or components. Go from macro to micro.
Simplifying by dissecting.
Yes. Examine how each part works individually and, crucially, how they interact and connect to form the whole. Understand the mechanics and interdependencies.
Seeing the gears and how they mesh.
And throughout this, consider present conditions. How is the current environment impacting each subsystem? Performance isn't static. Context matters.
Recognizing external influences.
Then, measurement. Systematically collecting data to see how the system is actually performing against goals. Allows objective comparison over time or against benchmarks.
Quantifying performance, making it objective.
This helps fight absence blindness, our tendency to miss problems or opportunities that aren't immediately obvious. Measurement makes the invisible visible.
Revealing hidden issues or potential.
Key here is tracking key performance indicators, KPIs, metrics, reflecting the most critical parts of the system aligned with strategic goals. Focus measurement where it matters most.
Measuring the vital signs.
Also, define acceptable tolerance for normal errors or variations. No system is perfect. Avoid overreacting to minor fluctuations.
Setting realistic expectations for variation.
And always consider the context and use proper measurement and sampling techniques. Bad data leads to bad decisions.
Measure the right things the right way.
Exactly. Only with this solid data-driven understanding from deconstruction and measurement can you effectively move to actually improving the system.
Okay, analysis done. Now, how do we actually improve these complex systems? What are the strategies?
This is where it gets tricky. The book warns about intervention bias. Our urge to act, to fiddle, even when it might be unnecessary or harmful, just to feel in control.
The temptation to meddle.
Right. So before intervening, consider the null hypothesis. What happens if I do nothing? Sometimes, especially in stable systems, non-intervention is best. Don't fix what isn't truly broken.
First, do no harm, consider inaction.
Good principle. When you do intervene, there are two main approaches: optimization and refactoring.
Okay, the difference.
Optimization is about making the current system work better, increasing output with the same input, or decreasing input for the same output, fine-tuning the existing structure.
Making the current design more efficient.
Refactoring is changing the underlying structure to improve its capabilities, speed, efficiency, flexibility, without necessarily changing the immediate output. It often follows deconstruction to identify areas for fundamental redesign. Rebuilding parts for long-term benefit.
Improving the foundation for future games.
Optimization tweaks the current engine. Refactoring might redesign the engine.
Got it.
The book also stresses incremental improvement. Big, sudden overhauls are risky. Small, gradual changes are usually safer and more effective. Consistent small steps lead to big results.
Evolution, not revolution, is often better for complex systems.
Exactly. Another tool is automation.
Using systems to operate without human effort.
Right. Best for well-defined, repetitive, predictable tasks. Reduces error, increases efficiency.
Offloading routine work.
But beware the irony of automation.
The more reliable it gets, the less attention humans pay.
Exactly, which makes it harder to notice when things do go wrong, potentially leading to bigger failures because intervention is delayed.
Reliability can breed complacency.
Right, so use things like regression sampling and testing. Regularly check that the automated system is still working correctly. Don't just set it and forget it. Continuous validation.
Ongoing vigilance is still needed.
Definitely. And finally, proactive scenario planning and stress testing. Explore potential future challenges, push your systems to their limits through exploration and exploitation to find weaknesses before they cause real problems. Preparation is key.
Proactively testing resilience to anticipate future issues.
Exactly. Applying these systems thinking principles, analysis, strategic improvement, adaptation, helps build more resilient and successful businesses.
We've covered an incredible amount of ground from the Personal MBA. As we wrap up, What are the final takeaways on the importance of continuous learning in business?
Well, the book really positions itself as a guide for that lifelong learning mindset. It's about making better decisions, boosting productivity, managing uncertainty, experimenting constantly. Business is never static.
A framework for ongoing self-education in business.
Right. It's a roadmap to learn business on your own terms, without the traditional MBA route necessarily. Our chat today hit many core principles and tools to sharpen your business thinking.
Empowering people to take charge of their business learning.
Exactly. And Kaufman suggests that really internalizing these concepts puts you way ahead of the curve in terms of business understanding. You gain a solid foundation for understanding how businesses work, evaluating ideas, starting something, improving existing operations, even applying skills personally.
A versatile toolkit for professional and personal growth.
Definitely. We touched on the iron law of the market, the 10 evaluation factors, 12 forms of value, the pricing uncertainty principle, ways to increase revenue, customer qualification. The Personal MBA is a practical primer using common sense and accessible knowledge.
Demystifying business, effectively.
Absolutely. It all comes back to that core idea. Successful businesses create value by finding unmet needs and figuring out how to fulfill them. And doing that well requires knowledge and continuous learning.
An ongoing journey of discovery and refinement.
Precisely. And with that, we conclude our deep dive into Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration. We hope it's shown that a solid business education is accessible through understanding these fundamental ideas.
We really encourage you, the listener, to think about how these concepts apply to your own goals and work, whatever stage you're at.
Whether you're just starting out, running something big, or just curious about how the business world ticks.
And to leave you with something to chew on. Now that you've explored these core ideas, what's one concept from the Personal MBA that you're most curious to learn more about, or maybe even try applying in your own life?
Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep learning, stay curious, and keep exploring.